Hello, I'm Sharon, and at 32 years old, I've recently emerged from a deeply unhealthy relationship, one that has become a rather ironic tale that I can't help but laugh at now. Before diving into that story, let me share a little about my background. I grew up in a wealthy family, which I've always appreciated, as it spared me from financial struggles during my upbringing. My parents, being wise, advised me to keep our wealth under wraps to avoid attracting those who might want to take advantage of us. Following their counsel, I lived a modest life, with my belongings subtly hinting at my family's affluence. When it was time for college, I chose a university far from home, eager to explore the world and assert my independence. To fully embrace this new experience, I lived on a budget like many of my peers, discovering the joys of thrift shopping and simple brands. Although I had access to a significant trust fund after graduation, I felt a strong urge to carve out my own path and work for a meaningful life rather than relying on my inheritance. A year after I graduated, I met Benjamin, my ex-husband, through a dating app. Our early dates were filled with charm and mutual gift-giving, and after 3 years together, he suggested I meet his mother, Margaret. I won't delve into the details of our first encounter, but the lead-up was significant. While I was open to meeting her, I explained that introducing my parents might take longer due to distance and busy schedules. We planned to coordinate a meeting with his mother, which marked the start of an unexpected chapter in our relationship. However, Benjamin suggested we could meet her as soon as this weekend, which caught me off guard. I understood his eagerness, given how much he idolized his mother, but the rush made me uneasy. My apprehension grew when Benjamin warned me that his family was quite affluent, something I had gathered from the lavish gifts he'd given me. He felt it necessary to caution me about his mother's tendency to judge people based on their social status. He didn't want me to be caught off guard or hurt by any potential remarks she might make. Although he reassured me that his feelings for me wouldn't waver, I couldn't shake the nervousness about our impending meeting. Sadly, Benjamin's warning didn't quite prepare me for my experience with Margaret. From the very beginning, our interactions were fraught with tension. Margaret epitomized the stereotypical elitist, making her disapproval of me painfully evident. When we first met, she scoffed at my choice of clothing from a regular store like Zara, setting a negative tone for our relationship. Benjamin often attended his mother's dinner parties and would plead for me to join him. In these moments, I was forced to deal with her contempt, even though I would have preferred to avoid her altogether. Margaret frequently insinuated that my interest in Benjamin was financially motivated. Despite my attempts to clarify that I didn't need his money, coming from a wealthy background myself, she would dismiss my words, derogatorily calling me a peasant. This was not only hurtful but also disrespectful to those who truly struggled financially. Benjamin's reluctance to confront his mother only deepened my feelings of isolation and undervaluation within our relationship. Navigating Margaret's antagonism was challenging enough, but her birthday party was the breaking point. At a large family gathering, she made it a point to ridicule me in front of everyone. That evening, she mocked everything about me, my outfit, my speech, even my mannerisms, turning me into the butt of the joke while Benjamin mingled with others, seemingly oblivious to my distress. After we returned home, feeling overwhelmed and hurt, I confronted him. I couldn't comprehend how he could allow me to endure such cruelty. Benjamin appeared unaware of his mother's incessant jabs, which had turned the night into a humiliating spectacle at my expense. I pointed out how he had consistently avoided me, leaving me isolated when I needed his support the most. He claimed it wasn't intentional, that he was merely caught up with other guests whenever I approached, but his words offered little comfort. The argument intensified as I confronted Benjamin about his failure to defend me against his mother's harshness. He argued that challenging her could lead to severe repercussions for him, but I countered by emphasizing his independence and resilience. In the heat of our exchange, Benjamin admitted to his shortcomings, apologizing for both the events of the evening and his prior insensitivity. He acknowledged my right to be upset and promised to confront his mother about her behavior, admitting he had been cowardly in handling the situation. Hearing this acknowledgement was a turning point for me. It was a relief to have him validate my feelings and commit to standing by my side. True to his word, Benjamin spoke with Margaret the very next day, initiating a long overdue change. It was a crucial step in repairing the rift her behavior had caused between us and marked a moment of growth for him, demonstrating his willingness to confront difficult situations for the sake of our relationship. Until that moment, Benjamin had never confronted his mother about her treatment of me, so I was taken aback when he finally did. Margaret was shocked by his newfound assertiveness, as she had grown accustomed to his silence. To Benjamin's surprise, she apologized and promised to change her behavior toward me. This unexpected development gave me hope for a warmer welcome at the next dinner party. However, My optimism was short-lived and Margaret told Benjamin there wouldn't be enough food for me to attend. I saw right through this excuse. It was clearly her way of excluding me without being openly hostile. With her previous means of amusement at my expense no longer available, Benjamin chose to believe his mother's excuse was genuine and decided to attend alone. This pattern of exclusion persisted, with Margaret inventing new reasons to keep me away from family gatherings. At first, this hurt me deeply, but I soon found solace in the distance it created between Margaret and me. It reduced the humiliations I had to endure, which in turn lessened the conflicts between Benjamin and me, as there was no longer a need for him to defend me in my absence. As time passed, I began to appreciate the peace and happiness that came from having fewer interactions with Margaret. This new dynamic significantly alleviated the stress in our relationship, allowing me to become more accepting of the situation, especially since it seemed to benefit us overall. After 4 years of dating, as both of our careers flourished, Benjamin proposed. Despite the challenges we had faced, I was thrilled. I believed in our resilience and our capacity to overcome obstacles together. Everyone in our circles celebrated our engagement, everyone except Margaret. Her disdain was evident when she questioned Benjamin's decision to marry me, implying that I was beneath him. However, Benjamin stood firm, defending our love and emphasizing its non-materialistic value. I brought happiness and comfort to Benjamin's life, which he argued could not be quantified in monetary terms. Despite Margaret's harsh critiques, accusing me of planning to live off Benjamin, he continued to stand by me, demanding that his mother respect our relationship and acknowledging the contributions I made to his life. This insistence on respect marked a pivotal moment for us, demonstrating Benjamin's commitment to our relationship and highlighting our growing ability to navigate challenges together, including Margaret's reluctance to accept me. From the start, I made it clear to Margaret that my love for Benjamin was genuine and not tied to his wealth. Yet, she challenged my intentions, suggesting I prove my disinterest in his finances by signing a prenuptial agreement. Benjamin refused, arguing that such a move implied a lack of trust in both me and our relationship. Margaret retaliated by threatening to disinherit him unless he complied. Faced with this ultimatum, we had 5 days to decide. I reassured Benjamin of my willingness to sign the agreement, emphasizing that my commitment was to him, not his wealth. When we arrived at Margaret's to sign the prenup, Benjamin wore an expression of remorse, while Margaret exuded a triumphant confidence, convinced she had undermined our relationship. However, signing the document was my way of demonstrating that financial matters held no power over my love for Benjamin. With the prenup finalized, we hastened our wedding plans to prevent Margaret from further sabotaging our happiness. We organized the wedding in 5 months, taking precautions to ensure security was tight to avoid any potential disruptions. Our wedding day was magical, overflowing with emotion and joy as we exchanged vows. The celebration was vibrant, surrounded by friends and family. Yet, Margaret couldn't resist attempting to shift the spotlight back to herself. During her toast, she tried to belittle me and forecast the demise of our marriage, claiming that Benjamin would eventually seek a partner who could elevate his status. Her words stirred unease among the guests, prompting me to quietly suggest to Benjamin that we might need security. This wasn't about retaliating against Margaret but about protecting the sanctity and joy of our special day. After the wedding incident, which resulted in Margaret being escorted out by security, I hoped to move past her hurtful words and enjoy my new life with Benjamin. Unfortunately, her remarks lingered, casting a shadow over our marriage. The day after our wedding, we visited Margaret to address her actions. Despite our intentions for a peaceful conversation, she was defensive, accusing me of manipulating Benjamin. She refused to acknowledge her hurtful behavior, doubling down on her accusations against me. In that moment, I finally stood up for myself, challenging her baseless claims. However, this only upset Benjamin, who saw my assertiveness as disrespect toward his mother. Despite years of enduring her disparaging remarks, my defense seemed to cross a line for him. I apologized to Benjamin, but this incident set a precedent for how we would handle future confrontations with Margaret. Empowered by my assertion, I found myself less willing to hold back when she attempted to belittle me. This shift often led to tense moments, with both Margaret and Benjamin criticizing me for causing discomfort. I argued that if Margaret wanted to avoid public embarrassment, she should refrain from trying to humiliate me. Benjamin, particularly displeased with my newfound assertiveness, frequently urged me to back down. Yet, I felt no reason to yield as long as Margaret continued her behavior. This standoff between my self-respect and Margaret's provocations became a recurring theme in our marriage, highlighting a significant challenge we would need to navigate together. Over time, I noticed a change in Benjamin's demeanor. He began to pull away, his once warm and affectionate nature cooling noticeably. This change seemed abrupt, and I couldn't pinpoint its cause, especially since he appeared to agree with my stance during private discussions. Then one day, coming home early from work, I spotted Margaret's car in our driveway and braced myself for another unpleasant encounter. What I walked into, however, was far from what I expected. I overheard a conversation between Margaret and Benjamin that froze me in my tracks. She was urging him to end our marriage, painting me as disrespectful and manipulative. She insinuated that I had wedged myself between them, claiming that if he weren't married to me, he would naturally side with her. Margaret portrayed me as a gold digger, suggesting my entitlement stemmed from a desire for Benjamin's wealth. Although Benjamin admitted to lavishing me with gifts without expecting much in return, hearing their words left me stunned. Was he really swayed by such baseless claims? I made my presence known by deliberately closing the door with a loud thud, halting their conversation abruptly. The realization that Benjamin was so easily swayed by his mother's manipulative narrative hit me hard. Instead of confronting them head-on, I chose a different tactic, allowing my actions in the days to come to speak volumes. As I walked past Benjamin and Margaret toward the bedroom, I caught another cutting remark from her about my supposed disrespect. Benjamin's only response was a resigned sigh. Inside the room, I braced myself for an emotional breakdown but was instead overwhelmed by fatigue. The relentless efforts by Margaret to push me away and Benjamin's dwindling support had drained me. Surprisingly, a part of me felt relief at the thought of our marriage ending, yet I was determined not to leave quietly. The following day, I gathered my financial documents, planning to reveal them after signing the divorce papers, wanting to prove my independence and dispel their assumptions about my motives. When Benjamin presented the divorce papers later that week, their frustration was palpable at my calm demeanor, but I proceeded to sign without hesitation. I was determined to strip them of any satisfaction they hoped to derive from the situation. However, Margaret's smugness quickly resurfaced and their lawyer promptly left with the signed documents. She taunted me, insinuating that I would miss the financial perks of being Benjamin's wife. To her surprise, I expressed my happiness at being free from their toxicity. Her insult, calling me a snob, and Benjamin's defense, accusing me of acting out because they had seen through me, only underscored their misunderstanding. They seemed oblivious to the fact that I had never been after Benjamin's money. I sought love and partnership, not wealth. Amidst their complaints about my failure to reciprocate Benjamin's gestures with even minor gifts, I had been secretly planning a grand surprise. I intended to buy him his dream car, fully customized to his liking. Such a gift required time, which they dismissed as mere fantasy. Skeptically, Margaret accused me of lacking the means, prompting me to prove her wrong with my bank statements. The revelation of my financial capability left them stunned, challenging their preconceived notions about me. Despite my attempts to convey that money had never been my interest, my words fell on deaf ears. Margaret labeled me inferior, and Benjamin viewed my independence as disrespectful. In the heat of their realization, they tried to re-engage me in conversation, hurling insults and disbelief at my newfound strength. Benjamin was visibly angered and felt betrayed, while surprisingly, Margaret softened, pleading for reconciliation, admitting her mistakes, and asking for forgiveness. However, the damage was irreparable. I firmly demanded that they remove themselves from my life, a sentiment I emphasized by having friends retrieve my belongings from Benjamin's house, effectively severing all ties with them. They even attempted to contest the divorce, falsely claiming that I had taken from them, but the airtight prenup that Margaret insisted on signing protected me from any financial claims they might have had. Now, I find myself on a path to normalcy, gradually healing from the wounds inflicted by Margaret and Benjamin's actions. It's a slow journey, but I'm confident that with time, I'll move beyond the turmoil and find peace. Thank you for being here to listen to my story.